crafty friends, this is Christy's Beautiful Life 30 Days of Sketches, but it's actually 31 Days of Sketches in October, round 10. And our sketch today comes from Nikki Rowland, and you'll see that here in a moment. But I just want to say the first part of my video, I go through my process of picking photos. So feel free to skip that if you want, and there'll be bookmarks or chapter sections underneath the video or in the video description if you want to go right to the assembly of the layout. Hey everyone, Amanda here, and I just kind of wanted to show you some of the photos that I've been going through and give you an idea of how I'm trying to wrap my head around for processing them. So if you have watched my channel for a bit, back in March I did the 30 Days of Sketches from Christy's Beautiful Life, and I worked on a heritage album for my mom. But because she had given me all of these photos, there was actually 2 more containers full of them to go through, and they're photos that range from the 1930s all the way up into, I want to say, the 1980s. So as I was going through these photos to kind of get an idea on things, these were ones like this is from Life with Father, and there are 2 more photos that I'm going to go ahead and add to the pages that I already did for my mom with that theme. And then I have another picture of mom going to this dance with this gentleman, and then I also have a photo of these vacation photos. So I thought what I would do is, if nothing else, I'll just add a flip flap over top of the page where this is, so that so I have these all set aside to go to my mom, and we're gonna actually go over there, I think, in a couple weeks on a Sunday afternoon just to visit. But then there was all of these photos that I have no idea who they are. There's newspaper clippings that, again, it talks about the class of 1962, which is when my mom graduated from high school, but I don't see any names in here that I recognize, but maybe my mom will know. So these are all people, like this talks about the Crossroads Church Camp, and this might end up with this pack because I did, if it's the Rainbow Camp, but I don't know. So these I all put together, and they're people that I don't know. That was pretty easy, I just put them off to the side. But I have them in here, so now my mom and I can go through them. But these photos, these are people, like, I didn't figure this one out. She was in the unknown pile for a while, but look at those pictures. I mean, that's totally, so that's my granddad, and I believe this is his sister, because I have Aunt Bernice, so that's my granddad's sister. And then I have all of these photos from my granddad, and I don't know if that can't be his mom, because his mom died when he was 3, and he was the youngest of 11 kids. So he was raised by, I'm sorry, I have these upside down. So it kind of looks like my grandmother's mom. So I don't know if that's them, but these are all photos of my granddad. Apparently he liked fishing, because there's a couple of them doing that. He's in uniform here. So I put all of my granddad's photos together with my Aunt Bernice. My grandma, same kind of thing. She was a nurse. And I also think I have a photo of her sister. And so I have that in here as well. So I knew enough, like I knew more than my kids will, so I knew enough to kind of put these together. These are all pictures of my grandma and grandpa together, and some of them are Christmas photos, but I just thought if I could kind of get them sorted this way, then what I would do, and oh, here's my grandmother's parents and also her sisters in here. So I believe this is my granddad, and this must be my grandmother's mom, my mom, and her sister. So what I thought I would do is I'm going to take my grandma and granddad, my grandma, and also my granddad ones, and because these are the only ones that I know that are family to my granddad, I'm going to add those with that. And my next album, or kind of the pages that I'm going to do for a theme, I'm going to go through, and these photos are great. Not all of them, but many of them have the date, so September of 1960, of when this was developed. So this one is October of 1966, and my granddad was a 33-degree Mason, and obviously he's in a parade, you know, as a flag bearer, and I don't know any more than that. But I thought that some of this deep sea fishing, don't know when, don't know where, but I thought if I could kind of put some of these together based on the clues that I have, do the same thing with my grandmother, and then try to intersperse them as much as I know and can get the dates together on them, it would just be fun. Like, here's a nursing picture of my grandmother, and then this one is Frida and Esta. And like I said, I'm guessing my grandmother was Frida, and I'm guessing Esta was her sister, but I'm not for sure. So I have all of these, and I just thought it would be fun, like I said, to kind of give you an idea of how I start this process of putting together heritage albums. So these were where these all came from. This is all photos. Another thing that I do when after choosing my photos, and especially if I'm trying to do like a whole book or a theme kind of together, is I want to pick a paper pack or color scheme. So I was looking at this Cherish paper, which just came out from Close to My Heart, and the colors, they're so versatile. Just in the colors that are recommended by the paper, you have peach and wisteria, 2 shades of green, you have the toffee, and then as you can see here, I think Harbor also goes with this. And then based on the photos that I have, the mist works so well with my granddad's shirt, and my grandmother is in a navy blue or a blue shirt, and so I'm adding sapphire to it. And I don't think the sapphire would work with all the different pattern papers, but I think it definitely works with this one. So here I just put Nikki's sketch up in the upper left corner so you can kind of see the direction we're going in. And I have these die cuts that are already on my desk that are in these colors because I've been doing some projects with Cherish. And I went to my stencils because in the sketch you can see how she has some stencils, and I was so excited to see that this stencil from last year's pack 1 of scrapbooking stencils, to me it has a very similar feel of that flower as is in the flower for Cherish. Spoiler, what I'm showing you here doesn't end up in my final layout, but I'm leaving it here so that you can learn from me. But I took just the white gesso, and I specifically chose this over textured paste because the white gesso doesn't come out bright white, it comes out kind of just an off creamy white, similar to the French vanilla color. And I thought, since that's the white that's in the Cherish paper pack, that maybe that would work really well for my layout. And it does, and I'm very excited. I peel this up and I was like, this is just gorgeous. My base is the old colonial white, which is a retired color, but this is gorgeous. It will be used somewhere in one of a future layout for my grandparents' book. It just won't be used in this one because I realized that looking at the sketch, there's like some star beams coming down, or sunbeams, excuse me. So I took from the background element stamp this long elongated, I have it on 2 blocks because I still haven't unpacked my stuff to find my long block shot. And with toffee ink, I'm just stamping it around a circle to give it that sunburst effect. And I don't know if you saw that, but one of the things I love about the acrylic stamps is that the stamps themselves are foldable. So I only wanted the end of this stamp and didn't want it to get in the onto the rest of the layout. So I just folded that around the block. So here I'm taking again that white gesso, and the reason why I'm redoing it is I realized I needed the sunbeams to be behind this floral element, and so I absolutely love how this turns out. It's funny, on video it doesn't show up quite as bright, but in real life it's great. Off camera I went ahead and gathered some supplies for embellishing, and I just cut out some of the 3D, or the layered leaves I think it was called, was an old die set that Close to My Heart had, and then also the 3D flowers, and I know that one is still available. So here, when I have 2 thin strips, they're like 1/8 of an inch, maybe 1/4 I think they're 1/8 of an inch each. So you put them side by side, and then my adhesive runner is 1/4 of an inch, so then it lays down a perfect amount of adhesive on each of these really narrow strips. And I like doing that sometimes, especially if I'm going to be bridging the gap between pattern papers, as you can see here. And this is just the back side of the floral print from the Cherish. And it's just a light, I think Seabrook is probably the main color in it, with a toffee stripe through it. So now I'm putting the photos back on, and this title came from the sticker sheet and the Cherish paper. And I decided before I put my photos on, I wanted to give more of that mixed media feel like Nikki has in her sketch. So I went ahead and grabbed the toffee shimmer brush, and I'm just splattering it. And I try to be mindful of which way I'm making the splatters go. So if I want them to go away, I tap on one side of the brush versus the other side. And gesso makes a barrier, and so by blotting it up, I'm making sure that I'm not going to have that toffee shimmer brush in places that I really don't want it. So now I can put the photos on. Before I adhered them, I did go ahead and make a copy and printed out what was on the back of these photos. I just love my granddad's writing, and so by making a copy, it'll now be in the book and memorialized. And I wasn't sure how I wanted to put this on the layout, but I thought doing this tag would just be perfect. So I just measured and added 1/4 of an inch so that I would have an 1/8 inch border around my tag, and then added an inch to the overall length. And then you saw there how I clipped the corners of the tag, and it just makes it a nice little tag every time. To make sure that the tag slips under the photo, because it's not really hidden, but I just didn't want to jumble the page with too much stuff. I think you kind of lose some of the photos, or I do anyhow. So by tucking it under the photo, it's there, people can pull it out, but it doesn't take away from the actual photos themselves. And the photos here, the one in the upper left is from 1942, and it's my grandparents. My grandfather is obviously in uniform. And then the one in the lower right is, on the back of it, has an address in Ansonia, Connecticut, which is where my parents lived, and it's dated December of 1970. And so I have a feeling my grandparents came to visit my parents in 1970, and so we must have had a family Christmas together then. Very exciting. So here on the tag, I'm just trying to make it look like there's a pull, and I'm going to be taking some of these mini flowers and using them around the page later. So what a better way to incorporate that on the right hand side of the page than on the tag. And I'm showing you here how I like to shape my flowers, and as I was doing my gesso through the stencil with my spatula, I realized that it has a perfect end for shaping these flowers. So if you don't have the old score tool from Close to My Heart that has that nice end that I like to use, this is another option for you. And it also just is a reminder to look at the tools you have and see if they have ends that, you know, will work for you for shaping those flowers. So this is going back to, I can't even think of, it was a old Close to My Heart set of textured ribbons and more, I would call it more yarn, and it's textured something, I can't remember the name of it. So I'm just rolling it, kind of spooling it around in a coil, and I put a glue dot in the center of that flower, and so now I'm just putting the yarn right in the center of the flower. And again, I don't think the camera shows the texture that it shows in real life. So now it's time to put my photos on. So I peel all of the foam tape off of the one photo, but I'm going to put this one down first, and I want to make sure that I don't accidentally stick the photo onto the tag. I want it to be able to slide underneath. So here we have that done, and it took me a long time. I had to wrestle with getting these thin words off of the sticker sheet and all of the individual, like the circle for the O, the center for the D, all of those out. So I didn't make you watch that. And now I'm just kind of playing with where I want to put this on the layout. And I kind of think that I'm honoring the sketch where it ended up. Originally I was thinking it needed to go under the photo, but because that photo is now bumped up and it would be too much of an angle, and I wasn't going to put foam tape under all of these thin letters. Just not going to happen. And then life is all together, where the W from wonderful was detached from the rest of the word. This word is all together with just the tilde left of the I. So you can see here some of the struggle that I have getting those centers out from the F and the E. So I did keep some of it in, but I just use my piercing tool and poke those out and then just put them on the backdrop of the sticker, so then they don't end up on my layout, because I don't know about you, but I have found little pieces like that on places of layouts that I never would have dreamed of. And I just add that word life, make sure to add my dot to the I, and this is starting to come together. I realize that with all of these photos that I have, I don't necessarily know my grandparents' story as much as my mom would. So I called my mom and talked to her for about a half hour this morning, and I have some notes on both my grandmother and my granddad. And then I also sent a message to my aunt, my mom's sister, in hopes that I can have a conversation with her, because I'm sure I have different memories growing up than my brother does, and I'm sure my aunt has different memories than my mom does. So I just thought it would be neat, since I'm trying to preserve the legacy and their story, that I should have the two different stories from both my aunt and my mom. So here I'm just using these little flowers almost like you would use a sequence or an enamel dot. It just kind of ties in the toffee and the shortbread colors from this paper pack. One of the little pieces of yarn had come off of the glue dot, or it probably wasn't on the glue dot to begin with, so I did use my piercing tool and put that back in. And once I dry fit everything, that's what I like to do. I am going back now, and so that I get them into the close proximity to where I like them, I go ahead and just pick them up, glue them down, and put them right back into the same place. If you have any suggestions or questions about doing heritage photos, leave me a comment. I love responding to those and interacting with you. I did go ahead, the one thing I think I would have changed is I would have gotten cardstock to print the copies from the back, the information on the back of the photos, and next time I will do that. But I think this will be fine. It has the backer of the scrapbook page, so all of that should be good. And I love just how these open leaves work with the scalloped edge that I did along the right hand side. I thought about tearing the papers, but I think sometimes less is more, or you need to concentrate on some techniques and not do everything in one layout. And with the title Wonderful Life, that gray, I thought I needed to bring more of that into the layout. So again, I went back to the sticker sheet and I just found these 3 little dots that had kind of just a gray little flower vignette on them. So I added those to the layout and we're done. I'm trying to do a close-up here so that you can see that stencil over top of the sun rays and just how nice that looks. Here's another video that you may be interested in. Be kind to yourself. Have a blessed day. Thank you.